Welcome, eternal friends! We are here for another deck tech and matches. I am really enjoying the new set. There's a lot of cool things going on, and I want to admit this one was definitely inspired by one of my viewers' decks that was sent in to me by Stormblessed. And it was something that I hadn't really thought about, even though I've done a lot of Relic decks in the past and Rat decks in the past. Their original deck isn't really a Rat Relic deck, but mine is. The idea is to kind of take the Xenan Relic deck that we had before. If you ever watched some of my other videos, we've had some cool Xenan Relic decks in the past, and one of them was really, really good. A lot of people want to add Primal to this, and that's not a bad idea, but I got Sentinelist a long time ago that it was just Xenan, and making adjustments to that, I found it to be the most consistent, and I've adjusted that for some of the new cards. The big one being that we can now play Waystone Gate, and this is the idea that Stormblessed gave me, and I don't know why I didn't think of it, but it's actually amazing. So, the big thing about Waystone Gate is that you can pay 3 to draw sigils, sure, whatever. The big thing that matters, though, is this Entomb. So, if it's your turn, which is important, you get to play an 8/8 giant when it dies. Now, you can use that by just using it 3 different times, and after the third use, you sacrifice it and you get a sigil, you get a giant. You can also, however, use Lethride Lobotomy, sacrifice a relic and kill an enemy unit, or you can also Consuming Greed. So you get a 2/1, a 6/4, and an 8/8 on turn 4. Because you got to remember, with a good hand here, what you're looking to do is you want to go turn 3, play Waystone Gate, turn 4, play Consuming Greed. That's 16 power of attack on the board on turn 4. That's a lot. It's one more than 15, in fact. So it's a lot of damage you can get out really, really quickly. And then the rest of the deck is kind of a traditional relic list that you'd want to see. And so what we have is we have Cryptic Master. Whenever we get Onslaught, then we can get a Cryptic Etchings. And obviously it's going to become very large, very early, which is also going to help us be pretty aggressive. We've got Teacher of Humility, which is, again, another really good aggressive unit. And, of course, also makes its own relic. So, makes its own relic, makes its own relic. We've got Aurelian Merchant. We want to have a market. We want to have a little bit of consistency, so we've got a couple of cards that are the same across, main deck and in the market. We've got the Consuming Greed that I talked about. And then we have all of our relics. We've got Rat Cages. Again, just wanting to be aggressive, beat people down really fast. You want to have a Rat Cage if you can. Like an ideal hand would be Rat Cage turn 1, turn 2 Teacher Cryptic Master, turn 3 Gate, turn 4 Consuming Greed. But you get Rat Cage to get a whole bunch of wide board position. It'll help you get Onslaught, which is going to be important not for Cryptic Master only, but also for Teleer Sanctum, which I'll get to in a minute. We've got the Porcelain Mask. It's nice to just be proactively getting rid of problem cards in your opponent's hand. Of course, Overwhelm is pretty important on things like our 8/8 Giant, our big Cryptic Master, the 6/4 that we get off of Consuming Greed, and just for the other part of the combo, which is Shepherd's Horn. So any of the cards with Overwhelm cost less, and when you play a card with Overwhelm, then you gain 3 life. So you get to gain a bunch of life off of various things that we have in the deck, like Rat Cage, and gain you a ton of life once you get this kind of combo out. If you get Rat Cage, Mask, Horn, you have 1,000,000 life. We've seen this a lot. This is a very traditional list in that regard, the Rat Cage kind of stuff. That's always been the combo, is Rat Cage, Mask, Horn. After that, we have the Sanctum, which is the other reason, like I said, that we need Onslaught. You can pay an additional you can play an additional power card each turn, and the Onslaught lets you draw a card, which is really important. It's just nice to be able to keep digging through your deck. Waystone Gate and Teleer Sanctum are really cool because you can dig for extra sigils, and then you can just play all those extra sigils. So this will let you power out really, really fast. And because of that, you can just kind of ramp like crazy. It's really awesome. It just lets you go buck wild really fast if you've got Teleer Sanctum and a Waystone Gate. And the nice thing is that if you don't have a Waystone Gate, and you don't have any extra sigils anymore, or you've gotten late in the game and you don't need to be playing extra sigils, then you've got extra relics for Consuming Greed and for Lethari Lobotomy to still get rid of. Like, you don't have to have Waystone Gate. You can get rid of Teleer Sanctums that are just spares. You can get rid of the Cryptic Master Cryptic Etchings. Because you only really need one Cryptic Etchings for it to be online. Like, you're not ever going to need two. You can just pay 2 to scout. You're probably not going to be needing multiples of those. On top of that, I mean, most of the time you're not even going to be using the one that you have. So a lot of times that's a little bit extraneous. It's just nice to have a relic for a bunch of different reasons, right? To power up your master, to be able to use it with like Rat Cage and get things. It's nice to have for those kinds of reasons, but you can definitely sacrifice it to Consuming Greed or Lethari Lobotomy if you need to. We have, obviously, Lobotomy as some removal, Seek Powers to just help us fix, and obviously just to make sure that we have enough power sources. We've got Glimpse of Possibilities. So we're talking about doing all that ramping with Teleer Sanctum and Waystone Gate and that kind of stuff. Well, what are we going to use all that power for? And Aurelian Merchant as well. Glimpse of Possibilities. So Glimpse of Possibilities will help us draw a bunch of cards, essentially. You want to be able to start a turn with, like, say, 5-6 power at minimum, and then you go ahead, play Glimpse right away. Another reason to have Teleer Sanctum, because if you run into multiple power cards, you can just power right on through them. You just get to play both of the power cards in a row. And Glimpse of Possibilities can draw you a lot of cards. I've been really surprised by this in the past when I ran this deck. The original version had Glimpse of Possibilities, and I never understood when I first looked at it. I thought, like, there's no way that this is good enough. And then after playing with the first Xenon deck that I had that was like this, and playing with Glimpse of Possibilities, I really liked it. And I've been sold on it since. So I really like the Glimpse. I've got a couple of banishes, just in case opponents have some opposing relics that are nasty, and of course just to get rid of opposing threats, right? You could definitely look at changing this to, like, Desecrates if you're having problems with that, or, like, Annihilate, maybe Ermot's Designs if you're getting run over for some reason, although generally we're going to be pretty aggressive. So there's other things that you can do with this. If you decided that you just have enough removal and you're not really worried about that, you could maybe put in Lethari Courtiers again, which was one of the things that the original deck had, so that you can pull up power cards faster with all of these relics that we have. So that's something that you could do as well. You could also put in some Grodaw's Burdens into the main. So there's a lot of things that you could do with Banish as a flex spot. I like the Banish just as a little bit of extra removal for now, but I can definitely see, like, shifting around some of these a little bit. I've only tested this for a little while. Then there's another card that I've really liked, and one of the main things that sold me on the original Xenon list, which is Perilous Research. So you reduce the cost of each relic in your deck by 1. Really good for Glimpse of Possibilities. And then on top of that, you create and draw an Alarming Findings, and this is the important thing. So for each of your relics, draw a card and play a 3/3 Sandcrawler with Overwhelm. And when you have all these relics, and you have things like Shepherd's Horn, because they come in with Overwhelm already, that gets real good. So this is essentially a really explosive, aggressive deck, where we can curve out and just go like Waystone Gate, Consuming Greed, and boom, we have 16 power on turn 4, just from 2 cards alone. Or you can end up in a game where you're a little slower, you have Waystone Gate, you get Teleer Sanctum, you just power out a bunch of sigils really quickly, get to 7, and then turn the corner, Alarming Findings, gain like 3, 4, 5 cards, and gain a ton of life, and just run away with the game late game too. So it can play both sides of that coin really well, which I like quite a lot. This is a fun little deck that way. Then we have kind of traditional power base. Got 4 crests, because we don't have a lot of power that's going to be coming into play depleted. That's the advantage, again, of running only 2 different colors, that we don't have to worry about a lot of depleted power sources, right? Like, we're not having to run a lot of crests and rely on a ton of seats and things like that, where we might not have enough units to actually get out, like, banners, or we might not have enough sigils to get the seats, because we have to run a bunch of different seats to get all the fixing in. Instead, we're just running the 4 that are in Xenon. We just run Xenon Insignia, which is thankfully undepleted. I might actually want to maybe run a couple less seats, because we don't have a lot of problems with fixing this deck at all. So you'd probably kick out a couple seats, maybe adjust some sigils up. If you're running into problems where you have these depleted, you might want to do that, just as a thought. And then we've got a couple emblems, just to have some extra oomph if we run out of, like, if we run into too many sigils. Because sometimes, like I said, we can draw a lot of sigils off of Waystone Gate, and we can play a lot with Teleer Sanctum. It's nice to be able to have something else to do with your power sometimes. So we've got a little bit of that, and pretty, like I said, pretty standard though. And then the market, we've got Glimpse as a way to just like power through a big turn. So we want things in our market that are going to do really, really big swingy turns for me. So Glimpse the Possibilities, especially because you're playing Aurelian Merchant and it gives you power again right away. I really do like Glimpse. It can dig you out of a lot of really bad situations because sometimes you're in a position where you don't need one card, you need 3, and Glimpse can be that. Glimpse can be a bunch of different cards. It's not going to be as consistently that good, but sometimes it's nice if you're a little bit behind, you can just suddenly turn a corner really fast, Glimpse the Possibilities, get like 3 or 4 cards off the top of your deck, and boom, you're back in the game. Obviously, I like having removal in the market if I can, so I put in a Banish. It's one of the things that we can actually fetch with Aurelian Merchant as straight up like a kill spell, so Banish is kind of typical for me to put in the market when I have Aurelian Merchants. Perilous Research, because like I said, it's one of the best cards for us to really turn a corner on, and it's a key card to the deck. Godov's Burden, I've really liked this card. I don't know if I want to play more in the main. It's just fantastic when you can get it, but it is very expensive. So that's part of the problem. That being said, when you hit like 8 mana and you just get to spellcraft this, Bury the Past, suddenly all of your rats have exalted, this thing's great. It does a lot of work, and so it's nice to have that as like a little bit of a late game punch. And then we've got Passage of Eons, because if there's somebody that has like a lot of flyers, that has some really problematic relics, and you only have 2 banishes, right? And so if they're playing like a ton of different relics, they're playing like Martyr's Chains and things like that, then you've got Passage of Eons as kind of your reset button. It's not a board wipe, but we don't really get a board wipe in these colors, right? We don't get to kill every unit in play. And Passage of Eons is kind of the next best thing that you can do in a heavy time deck to actually wipe out your opponent's whole board. Doesn't quite do it, but it does it the best that you can. So that's kind of the idea there. Just try and reset the board when we're in real big trouble. And that's our deck. I'm going to run it through its paces, and I hope that you all stick around. I will have a link below that will have the Eternal Warcry for the deck, and then of course, at the end of this video, there will be a link to the matches. So we're going to run it through 5 matches in a row and see how it does. Thanks everybody for stopping in. I do really appreciate it, all the patrons and all the subs that make this possible. It means a whole heck of a lot. And of course, to my old sponsor, inkgaming.com, where I sell a whole bunch of different playmats and mouse pads and things like that. They sell really cool, just various like D&D and Magic and geek gear in general. We have a hoodie up there. We've got some playmats. We've got like dice bags and all kinds of things. I'm going to be putting some more channel art up there when I can. And you can check that out down below as well. All right, see you for the matches.